Thank you, Jane. I think one of the points that you highlighted, which links so nicely to what Sagir was saying, was when you mentioned this point about, those of Muslim appearance. And that last case study just proves, actually, that there are so many abuses that take place, and it's not just limited to the Muslim community, but actually extends much further than that, because it is this perception about those who are perceived to be Muslim. I always talk about this, that, sometimes we don't think about it in this way, but you have to realize that when they shot Jean-Charles de Menezes in the back of his head, they actually believed they were shooting a Muslim. And when you think about it from that perspective, the actual racist element or the discriminatory element of these policies starts to make more sense, because then you realize its full impact when it starts to target and impact those who it was never really envisaged to target in the first place. And somebody who knows all about being targeted by counterterrorism policies, not just here in the UK, but worldwide, is our next speaker, Moazzam Begg, who is one of the main individuals involved in CagePrisoners. He does most of our outreach work, and of course, he's also a former Guantanamo Bay detainee. So Moazzam, please come up.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah wa salatu wa salam ala Rasulullah. Friends, brothers and sisters, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Schedule 7, why is that something that CagePrisoners is discussing? Why is an organization that was founded upon the outrages and the abuses taking place at Guantanamo Bay now talking about Schedule 7 stops in the United Kingdom, Schedule 7 of the 2000 Terrorism Act, something that happened before 9/11? Why is this something that's part of our remit? Why are we concerned with this? I can tell you why I'm concerned with it, because I'm subjected to it almost every time I travel. I can tell you also that although on the further scale of things, of detention without charge or trial, where you are subjected to questioning, searching, examining, all against your will and being held against your will by a power, an authoritative power, it is a projection of something something bigger on a much smaller scale. So that if I give you an idea of what it feels like, not just to be stopped under Schedule 7, but to even plan your trips abroad based upon the likelihood of being stopped under Schedule 7, and which airport is it that you are likely to suffer the least abuses under these powers. It's something that I and many other people I know do often, because they are stopped so often. And I have been stopped so often that I've come to the point when I say, I refuse to answer your questions, do your worst. And the worst is, of course, they go off and speak to the superiors and come back and say, you can go, Mr. Begg. Because the essence behind all of this, the truth behind all of this, is that they don't know why they're stopping you most of the time. They don't know why they're doing it. They just know that there's something that flags up your passport. If they're stopping you because of that, because, as we've said, most of the people are in fact stopped because of their appearance or their perceived appearance of being Muslim. And imagine just standing in the queue, coming up to border control. And I've done many investigative trips out to Libya, to Tunisia, to Egypt, recently to Syria. And these places are places of turmoil, where there are all sorts of terrible things taking place. So that you expect, when you return to your home, to your abode, to your land of residence, to your country, to the place where you were born and raised, you expect some sort of relief, a welcome. But the welcome that you get by the border agency is this. Is there something wrong with your passport? Can you just wait a moment? We won't be long, nothing to worry about. 10 minutes, 20 minutes, half an hour. 2 gentlemen come to see you, wearing badges, not in uniform. Can you just accompany us to this room, this closed room? Everybody else is gone. All the foreigners, all of the people who weren't born and raised in this country, all the people who have much less to do with this country than you do, they all go past. The place is empty. You've just begun your ordeal, which could last an hour, if you're lucky, 2, 3, 4, depending on the questioners, and upon, I have to say, the intellect of those that are questioning you, because oftentimes it is people, let's say, that are not too high on the order of questioning ability that are asking the questions, that are doing the interrogations. So you're there, and they come along, they search you, they take your jacket away, they take away your luggage, they search it, they give you some documentation to say under what laws they're holding you, and then they begin the mundane, useless questioning about your trip. And as I've said before, in the past, I answered the questions to the point at which I realized the questioning was futile. I didn't understand where it was going. And eventually, when you are released from their grips, as it were, you get out and walk through, and everybody's gone. Your baggage is the only baggage that's left on in baggage collection area, and off you go. The people that were waiting for you had to wait hours. They went back home, or you have to make your own way to be collected. And this as a regular recurrence to numerous people. And they vary from pregnant women to young children, all the way to, I remember the case of Shakir Amr and his in-laws, his father-in-law, who is in excess of 80 years old, and his mother-in-law, who is slightly younger than him, wheelchair-bound, had returned from a trip to India. He phoned me after this harrowing experience, he said, that lasted for 3 hours, in which they separated him, the old man, from his wife. And he couldn't understand. Why did they do this? But what are the lasting effects on him as a result? Doesn't like the idea of traveling. The purpose, what is the purpose, and what is the cumulative effect? Even if they say it's not intended, the effect is that you dread coming to the UK as a British citizen. That you fear waiting in that queue, knowing that they're going to pick, or the likelihood of them picking you out is more than anybody else in the queue. So the effects of it are very internally destructive. And it requires a certain sense of being able to resist, a certain sense of saying, okay, as one of the cases has just happened, that I think somebody will be speaking about, that a woman also refused to answer questions. What can they do if you refuse to answer questions about something that is fundamentally against your basic rights? They are detaining you for that period in question without charge or trial. They are not required, although you have the right of a lawyer to be present, to wait until that lawyer comes, which could be at any time. So they could continue that interrogation against you. And you could be saying all sorts of things which could cause you problems in the future. You don't have a lawyer present, and as a result of it, you feel leaving that place violated. It's the only way I can describe it, because they will search you, and as has been explained before, they can strip search you if they wish. Now, where Britain, the United Kingdom of Great Britain, the land of habeas corpus, where no man gets detained without charge or trial, or not supposed to anyway, except that they're judged by their peers. But here in this instance, in Schedule 7, which is just one of the scores of legislations that are available to the police and to the state to be able to infringe upon the rights and to be able to detain, arrest, charge people that are suspected under the new range of laws that we have under anti-terrorism measures. This is something that has been, I think, almost everybody I know, or somebody, or everybody knows somebody who's been affected by Schedule 7 stops. And being detained and being stopped, being questioned and being examined for that period, and the fear of it before and the effects of it after are something that is shaping the attitude of the Muslim community towards all of these legislations. It is, you may have heard of the doctor recently, the British doctor who died in Syria. One of the things he told me a while back was that he too, after returning from a trip to working in the hospitals in Syria, treating young children and women and men who had been affected by the war, he too was detained under Schedule 7. And he too was questioned. And he too was swabbed and DNA taken from him. And all of these things, his fingerprints taken, all of these things you are unable to challenge. There's nothing you can do about it because the strong arm of the law at ports of entry and exit to the country can descend upon you in ways that they couldn't anywhere else. So it's very difficult for them to try to stop and search you in the middle of the streets simply because of your appearance or simply because of a question they want to ask you. So they've done it at ports of entry and exit to the country. People who are going on the convoys to Palestine, taking in food and aid there, were stopped and questioned under Schedule 7. People who were taking aid to Syria were stopped and questioned and detained for hours, 7 or 8 hours, while they're carrying food, medicine, aid, blankets, clothes for children. And this is Britain doing this to people who are intent upon doing nothing against the law and only to assist those who are much worse off than us. So it is about time. And clearly the responses that we've had in discussing this issue, we've elicited just a couple of minutes before this started. I had 2 phone calls from people who said that they would like to say that they also have been stopped, harassed, questioned and detained under Schedule 7, and they would like their voices to come forth too. And we say to them to join the campaign on the website that we have, schedule7stories.com, and to catalog what it is that you encountered by the security services at the ports of entry and exit in this country. Clearly, this is something that affects the entire community. It affects the Muslim community. There's no doubt of this. But something I remember that the Irish say to me often when I go over there to visit, they say that it's true, Moazzam, that we were the suspect community in the past. But they used to wait until they heard the accents and the sounds of our voices. With you guys, they see you coming a mile off. Thank you.